Welcome to the Metaphysical Martini Show, where wit and wisdom come together to bridge the gap between the spirit realm and the physical world. With Ani Avedissian, the Suburban Shaman, a production of Cosmic Reality Radio.
Hello everyone,
Did you hear me? You're
I'm
live?
Ani Avedissian. Welcome to Metaphysical Martini. 3 parts spirit, 1 part rational mind, add 2 drops of optimism. Give it all a good hard shake and pour. Dress it with the olives of grace and empathy. Sit back, sip slowly, and contemplate the wonder of cosmic creation. And a hearty hello to everyone out there. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining us for yet another round of cosmic cocktails on this week's Metaphysical Martini, the show that tries to sort out what's true, what's woo, and what gets flushed down the loo. In today's I Can Scream Louder Than You, even though I have no idea what I'm screaming about, locked down in fear, sad, a little bit bad, little world. As always, we try to do this with as much grace and empathy as can be mustered on any given day. We are not always successful, I will admit that, but we are honor bound to give it our best shot. And on this show, the Metaphysical Martini Show, we do love shots. Yes, we do. Our rally cry is "Awaken, O my people! Do not follow the path of the sheeple, and do not give our God cause to weeple." Well, if you're joining us for the first time, I extend a very warm welcome to you. Our goal here is to help we the people reclaim our minds from decades of perceptual engineering. Now, be warned, we don't do politically correct on this show because we see it as yet another social conditioning experiment by the establishment designed to erode our intellect and make us all too fragile, too sensitive, and too feeble-minded to engage in honest and frank discussion. And thus far, it's working very well, isn't it? I mean, let's look around us today. And for those of us who have any capacity for objectivity, well, go ahead and tell me it's not working. We are, however, big fans of common decency, common courtesy, and our old friend, common sense. What happened to those things? Now, Metaphysical Martini, we have no partisan affiliations because we know how the world works, because we have paid attention. You pick a side, and in no time at all, you are adjusting your individualized thought forms, your inspired inner guidance system, to fit the party's perspective. And that's when critical thinking stops and propaganda takes over. Again, look around you today and tell me it's not working. So you probably won't enjoy this show if your entire identity is wrapped up in being a Democrat or a Republican or a green person or a libertarian or a slice of strawberry and rhubarb pie. On the rare occasion, we do support the contribution of one pompous politician over another. It has nothing to do with which party they have chosen to party with. The two-party system is a crock. Both parties are broken, and they're broken because the globalists, the establishment, the cabal, whatever we're calling them these days, have bought out all but a tiny handful of political panderers, and we cry in shame every 4 years as the once great and hopefully soon to be great again American people fall for the same old donkey and elephant farts, masquerading as a breath of fresh air. Yes, that was a very long introduction, but I feel it was necessary. Why do we keep falling for it? Not the introduction, the it. Well, we keep falling for it because we've allowed propaganda to replace critical thinking. Some of these politicians that are in our faces every day, they've been in office for decades. Now, what on earth would make someone think that this year is the year they're going to come up with something new, something that will benefit the people? Let's face it, peeps, they don't care. They're all millionaires. They didn't start out that way, but they became millionaires. But the bigger problem is that most of us don't care. And this is our country and this is our planet. So, for heaven's sake, and I mean that quite literally, we need to actively engage in our personal and collective evolution. We Martini heads, we are vocal about our love for America and the rest of the world, of course, but we're here in America, which has a sacred purpose, which is unity through diversity. But that will never really be achieved until deep state ideology is exposed, understood, and eliminated. And that requires more than a breath of fresh air, doesn't it? Yes, it does. It requires the mighty winds of change. And those mighty winds of change started gusting 2015, 2016, when POTUS 45 and the Patriots made their commitment to clean house. Now, I've had some very strange letters about POTUS or my love for him. I don't do hero worship, people. I really don't. If I'm going to worship anybody, I'll worship me. You know, he's not my hero. I have the utmost respect for the man for what he's trying to do. You do it. You go ahead and take on the forces of Lucifer, the forces of darkness, knowing that every single day people want you dead, and all to get the country and the planet back on track. You know, if that's hero worship, then okay, then maybe I'm guilty of hero worship. I think it's utmost respect that I have for what he's doing. And, you know, that is not a partisan statement. I am truly baffled and a bit miffed by the number of times I have to point this out. Anyone with half a brain and more than 2 spoonfuls of awareness has figured out that we're way beyond Democrats and Republicans today. We're in the midst of some sort of World War III. World War III, freedom versus tyranny, light versus dark, evil versus goodness. And in this war, the ammunition the enemy uses is information control and the focused use of propaganda, the result of which is compliance through fear. The establishment does not want free thinkers who wish to write their own stories or make their own decisions, plot their own paths. They want obedient automatons who lap up every ounce of cow poo-poo spewed out by their minions in the media. And it couldn't be more obvious if the media cow poo-poo were actual cow poo-poo and slapped you in the face. It couldn't be more obvious to people who own their minds and have not given their minds over to establishment propagandists. And how many times have I said that? Well, apparently not enough, because Gates and Fauci have still not been tried for treason and crimes against humanity. And the state governors and town mayors who allowed, I could even say encouraged and possibly played a part in financing the thugs to take over parts of our cities and commit criminal acts, have not been tried and imprisoned. In my mind, which is not a feeble mind, there is no mistake how this ends. It ends with the full measure of the law. People have to see what has been hidden from them in plain sight, and they have to see the consequences for the actions taken by those who have sought to enslave mankind. If that all sounds too dramatic for a lot of you, take a step back and take a look at the bigger picture. And I think you'll find that perhaps you got lost in the details and forgot the game. My darlings, all of you, especially those of you Martini heads and people who listen to the Cosmic Reality radio shows, I know that you are awakening people. I know that you are different from the masses because you care and you research. And I feel for you, I do, because there are days when you think you will drown in the endless ocean of naivety and stupidity. And then there are days where you think, perhaps the weight of your words might create an island for those who need a place to land and regroup. And that is why we continue to speak our truth. All the while, seeking to do so from a place of alignment with spirit and from a place of objectivity in the mind. Warm hearts and minds that are cool, no one will ever play you for a fool. We started this show quite a while ago now to promote respectful civil discussion, and we devote the main bulk of this show to answering your questions and reading your comments. But before we move on to quack, questions, answers, and comments, I'd like to make a few short announcements. Here we go. If you'd like to know what I'm up to and what crazed notions and imaginings course through the martini-fueled corridors of my mind, visit my website. It's all there. And I've got this message thing every month, Monday messages. It will be delivered to an inbox of your choosing. I have to go there to find out what I'm doing. You should do the same. As far as classes go, coming up this month, which is September 2020, I have a 101 primer class on paranormal activity. Paranormal, or is it? That's a 3-hour class via Zoom. Everything's via Zoom these days. It's on Sunday, September the 13th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time zone. The cost is $30 American, and it's an excellent primer for anyone new to the subject. We always leave time for questions, and if you want to sign up for that, and it's Zoom and Boom and PayPal, it's all on the website. Then the monthly Cosmic Conversation for September will be on Saturday, September 26th, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific time zone. And this month, instead of one focused subject, I am opening up the floor to a good old-fashioned question and answer session, what I call a spiritual salon. And if you'd like to sign up for that one, details are on the website, blah, 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 blah. And as of October 1st, I have 4 spots available on my mentorship program or on my spiritual mastery program. And those can be spots for one person or for your peer group of up to 4 people. Details on the website. These programs are very popular because they cover a wide variety of subjects and they give people seeking clarity on all things metaphysical a solid platform upon which to build. Also, it's me, so it's going to be fun and it's going to be an absolutely no BS zone. So there we are. Go to the website, figure out what's going on, and when you figure it out, let me know because I'd love to know. Okay, on to quack. Questions, answers, and comments. Do-do-do-do-do-do. If you would like to share the contents of your fabulous mind on this fabulous show, send your thoughts to ani@aniavedissian.com or via snail mail to Cosmic Ani, P.O. Box 714, Wilsonville, like the tennis racket, Oregon 97070, America the Beautiful. And should your choice nugget of wisdom be chosen, please let us know if and how you wish to be identified, because if you do not, we will refer to you as omit personal details. All right, let's shake up the old fishbowl and let's see what pops up. Shaking, shaking fishbowl. All right. There are no fish in the fishbowl, by the way. That would be cruel. All right. This is an email from someone called Truth Seeker in Lodi, California. Lodi, California, I'm pretty sure I got suzzled there on a wine tasting once. I'll have to look that up. All right. Truth Seeker, I'm sure that's your real name, says, "Hey, Ani, the resurrection of Jesus. That's what the Christian faith is based on, right? Do you believe he was resurrected? If he was resurrected, then he was crucified, and many think this was not the case. Do you have any thoughts on this? By the way, was he born in a manger? What is a manger? Was he even real? What about the Immaculate Conception and the virgin birth?" Great. Thanks, Truth Seeker. I love these questions because I always welcome the opportunity to alienate as many people as possible in one short segment. Let me have a sip of my drink. All right. Was he even real? All right. These are my views. I didn't just come up with this. This is lifelong contemplation. Christ consciousness is very real. It is the energy most high before Source Creator. And Christ consciousness manifests at will, as is necessary, as many times as is appropriate on whichever realms require it. And it will manifest as something the people of that realm will recognize and relate to. On our realm, this consciousness has manifested many times as wide wise. They might have been wide, but they were wise and learned teachers. And the personalities we know best as Jesus and Buddha were just two of its multiple personifications. Now, do I think the story of Jesus as presented in the Bible is accurate? No, I do not. The stories were manipulated for purposes of control, as such things always are. Here's how it goes in history. If people get too close to God, have too much of a sense of soul sovereignty, well, that does not serve the state, does it? So the state creates a god of wrath, of fear, and vengeance. And this wrathful, fearful, vengeance god person needs careful handling. And of course, the state, whatever form it takes, is only too happy to provide the handling services. So, did the person we know as Jesus exist in our history? Yes. I have absolutely no doubt about that. But the history is not accurate. Now, you also asked about the Immaculate Conception and the virgin birth. All right, so that's not the way we procreate on this realm. You know, we have to do a bit of bonking first, and certain physical actions have to be instigated, and there's a process. But how do you make people believe someone is special? Well, you invent a crazy story to fool the illiterate peasants. A particularly good story, it would seem, because the peasants, that's us, we are no longer illiterate. But the constant repetition, the sense of familiarity, well, you know, that continues to fool us and play tricks on our minds, and eventually our brains take a shortcut and accept it as real. Was he born in a lowly manger? No, he was not. He came from an upper middle class family, I should say. He would not have had access to the education, the money to travel and spread his message. Nobody would have given him the time of day in any of the temples. None of the scholars would have entertained any words from him had he been just a pauper. Was he crucified or was he resurrected? Okay. No, he was not. I do not believe for one moment. It is my understanding through my years of studying this and prayerfully contemplating with beings off-world, on-world, on the other side, and on all sides, that he was not. Think about it. Who would demand that kind of sacrifice of crucifixion? Only a capricious evil bastard of a god would require such a disgusting show of obedience and blood-fueled ritualistic sacrifice. And our God is not such a being. And on a more practical note, really crucifying him? Boy, if I was the authorities, I wouldn't do that, because that would make him a martyred hero. And the Sanhedrin, they knew that. They wanted him discredited, not raised to martyr status. But they had to do something about him, because he was, you know, stirring the pot. So yeah, they beat him up and they ordered him into exile. And Jesus had no option but to go. And he went with Mary, and they left for the Far East, a place that he, Jesus, or should I say Emmanuel, because that was his name, a place that Emmanuel knew about at that time because he had visited the Far East in his younger years, and he had learned a great deal there about cosmology and energy anatomy in general. And Emmanuel and Mary, they had children. They were a family. It would have been unusual for a Jewish man of the time not to be married and have a family. And they lived a long and a happy life. And when their mortal bodies died, they ascended into the higher dimensions via our heaven. Doesn't matter how highly evolved your soul is, when you have a physical incarnation on this planet and your body dies, you have to go through heaven. The soul of Emmanuel was not created by a god, it was created by the archangels, the primary expression of the divine. This is how we know how special he is. Look, there's so much inaccuracy in the Bible, accidental and purposeful, that I would need a year or more to go through it all with you, which I'd love to do, but I can't do that right now, so I'll confine it to this for today. There was no Last Supper. There was no betrayal by Jesus. Emmanuel did not create a ceremony saying, drink this wine, it is my blood, eat this bread, it is my body. Those ceremonies exist in Luciferian rituals and have no place elsewhere. And that is a subject, an especially important subject, for another time. There was no crucifixion and there was no resurrection, and the Shroud of Turin is not Jesus. But none of that can detract in any way from the magnificence that was Jesus Emmanuel, who was just one personification of the most high, most radiant, most glorious soul known in the upper realms as Sananda. If you want to read the many versions of the Bible, go ahead. I've spent decades doing it. Read it, but don't do so without reading the history of the church and its subordinate supporting structures, because unless you're colorblind, you will come across many red flags. These control mechanisms, like wearing the mask today, this is what keeps mankind from evolving. And the sooner we stop falling into these social conditioning traps, the sooner we will reach the golden age. You don't need a virgin birth. You don't need magical things. You don't need brutal acts of death to make Emmanuel, Jesus, special. He was very, very special. But if you look at his story, the virgin birth, the crucifixion, the resurrection, and then go back into various scriptures of all cultures, you will see that that same story has been repeated no less than 2, 3, 4 dozen times. They can't all have been born in a manger from a virgin. They can't all have been crucified, and they can't all have been resurrected. So, but that doesn't detract from how cool Jesus really is. So thank you, Truth Seeker, and may your God go with you. Very good question. And now so many people out there hate me, but it's okay because I still love you. Drinky Poo, my God, Drinky Poo. Here's to you, God. Lovely. Here's another question from Inga. I think it's Inga. It could be Inja, but I think it's Inga. Ani, what are demons? Are they the same species as fallen angels, or are they another type of being? Where do they come from? How do we banish them? My father says they feed on our emotions. Well, Inga, everyone has their own ideas about what demons are and are not. Originally, the word demon didn't necessarily devote or denote an evil spirit, but referred to a lesser type of god. And what that means is, quite frankly, anyone's guess. Many beings, I would say incarnate beings, were hailed as gods when they visited primitive worlds, in their spaceships. I mean, some of them acted ethically and honorably, and some did not. And somewhere down the line, the ones who behaved badly were labeled as demons. And further on down the line, we came to associate demons with evil forces, both incarnate and discarnate. And so it does get a little confusing, and now we associate them with discarnate beings of evil. And then you asked if they're fallen angels. So what are fallen angels? And again, everybody has their own opinion on this, but after the Big Bang, but before the creation of the dense physical worlds, the energies that left source to experience life outside the state of pure potential are referred to as angels and archangels. The archangels came first, and from the archangels came many realm of angels. And once they discovered their thought forms could be made into physical things, which resulted, of course, in the creation of universes, each angel, which included the gods of the universes, because they came from this angel realm, each angel soul had to make up its mind whether to stay a spirit energy or to incarnate. So physical incarnation was a new experiment, and many knew it, it's an adventure, isn't it? There's no guidebooks. So it's to be expected that a few souls would lose their way in this new experiment, and some would perhaps get too wrapped up in the experience to remember their code of co-creation, and they would go off and do stuff on their own, rather like Lucifer did, and that would be the fallen angels. As for demons feeding on our emotions, how many times do I talk about clean auras and clearing the triggers and your emotions out of your aura? A human walking around with an aura pulsating with unprocessed emotions, that's an all-you-can-eat buffet with cheese toast for any type of being. So I think what your father is referring to, whether he knows it or not, are what I call assorted energy parasites. They are entities created from the trash heap of festering human emotion. Now, traditionally, we know them best through folklore as the demons of the 7 deadly sins: pride, avarice, God, I've forgotten them. What are they? Hang on. Pride, avarice, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, sloth. That's right. And of course, all of their subordinate secondary emotions. So demon has become a catchphrase for anything dark that preys upon our minds and feasts upon our souls. So exorcists throughout the ages, they've written volumes on the subject. I studied the subject at great length, and a goodly portion of my work deals with the fallout from dark rituals. But honestly, in today's world, I don't see the point in giving these things names and sorting them into hierarchy and category unless it's for academic reasons. That said, as the Great Awakening, which is what we're going through, it feels like the Great Poop Storm, but it's actually the Great Awakening. As it heats up every day, I see planes of existence crashing into each other. I see timelines merging and then separating. And I'm encountering many types of entities which bleed through the thin parts of the veil and find themselves in unfamiliar territory. And when that happens, they behave in ways that are uncharacteristic for their species. If you and I were just sitting one day in our living rooms and suddenly the timelines crashed and merged and we found ourselves in a completely different realm, we too would behave in an uncharacteristic fashion. We'd be scared for a start. So I don't want to get biblical on you because that is not my way. But as an intuitive, I see these entities literally riding people, not in the sexual way, I hope, but quite literally riding on their backs, urging them to do things we would consider mentally unbalanced. And when they get these people together in groups, people lose all reason and they behave in unruly, brutish, ugly, and oftentimes violent manner. We're seeing that quite a bit in today's world, aren't we? And I suspect we will see a great deal more before the trump card is played and this vile agenda of the dark state is exposed, understood, dismantled. And then, of course, there's all the fallout from that as people go, I didn't know, and other people will go, I don't want to know, and oh, blah. Anyway, so Inga, or Inja, is that a G or a J? Inga, I'm glad you brought that up because, the danger of unprocessed emotions, we attract whatever we vibrate to. If the primary vibration in our energy fields is alignment with the divine, then we shall live in alliance with all that is fair and balanced and harmonious. But if our energy fields are filled with frustration, anger, a victim mentality, and a sense of poverty consciousness and lack, the corresponding assorted energy parasites will attach to our bodies and ride us, whipping us into a frenzy of hatred. And the worst part of that is that any vibration we emit is perceived as an invitation by the parasites. So once they're latched on, it's extremely difficult to remove them. Now, the establishment, in all its many forms, knows a great deal about quote unquote demons. They've even managed to create some from a mixture of biological matter and artificial intelligence. I came across one of those bots not too long ago when I was investigating anomalies for a client. I'll just say there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in our philosophy. And for those of you that weren't tortured by Shakespeare in the British school system, that is a direct quote from Hamlet. And it means you think you know something, but then you turn the corner and you realize you know nothing because every day is a new experience. And we can have many long conversations about what demons are and are not. But if we meditate and pray daily, and we keep our auras clear and pure and vital and stable, there won't be any demons around because we will be off their radar. And I would much rather live in that world than this one. So thanks, Inga. It is a fascinating subject. Pretty sure I've done some classes on it, but it made people very depressed and afraid, so I don't do those classes anymore. All right, let's take another question from our fishbowl of the inquisitive mind. Oh, it's about 101 degrees in my office today. Excuse me while I have another drink. I mean, it's the same drink. It's the same drink. I'm having another sip from the same drink. Very nice. Okay, this is a postcard from a chap who goes by the name of Mimit. And this postcard is one of those tourist cards, and it has a picture of Cape Elizabeth, it's in Maine somewhere, and it looks very pleasant. I'd like to vacation there one day. So Mehmet says, Ani, do you think we should teach the Ten Commandments in schools? Since no one adheres to them, what value do they hold? Do you think we should come up with something to replace them? Well, that is a good question, Mehmet. Let's go ahead and alienate some more people and address that. So, since no one adheres to them, what value do they hold? Mehmet, while I agree that we don't adhere to them, they are something we should aspire to. I don't believe they are the word of God as written by Moses on the tablets, blah, blah. But they are very good and basic spiritual tenets. So let's take a look at them. Because as with all things of the utmost importance, they are misunderstood through ignorance and misinterpreted by design. So, the Ten Commandments by Ani Avedissian. I hope my mother's not listening to this. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. All right. Does that mean we should not worship any of the gods in the other universes? No. I think it means we should place our alignment with all things cosmic and divine before interacting with all things on the physical realm. When we align our hearts and minds and purpose with God's love, things will go so much better for us. And that's simple common sense advice. I don't know why Moses had to go to the top of the mountain to get it, but I vote to keep that one on the list. So commandment number 1, we're keeping it. Hallelujah. I'm just going to make a note of that. All right. Next commandment, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. So does that mean we can't have paintings or sculptures, especially paintings and sculptures we consider to be representations of God? No, of course not. This is a physical realm, and on physical realms we make things. This commandment, I think, advises us to hold God's love above things. Our physical realm is made up of things, and if we value having a fancy car or, a super fancy shotgun or something over having harmonious relationships, then we are not in alignment with all things cosmic and divine. Temporal, fleeting, material things, they will break down, they will rot, they will wither, they will decompose. But God's love, as our souls are, is eternal. So that's simple common sense advice. I vote we keep that one on the list. Good. I'm going to tick that one off. I'm sure all manner of ecclesiastics everywhere are going to be delighted that I'm standing up for the Ten Commandments here. Let's take a look at another commandment. Thou shalt not take the name of thy God in vain. What does that mean? Does it have something to do with insulting God? Because you see, that simply is not possible. God is not human, and therefore has no false alter ego, and cannot perceive an insult. Unconditional love doesn't have an opposing force to it. It simply loves and loves some more. So I think it means don't call yourself a Christian or insert your favorite faith there and spout self-righteous rubbish while you go around behaving in ways that would make Jesus or the other prophets give you the stink eye. So that's simple common sense advice. I vote to keep that one on the list. Right, we're keeping that one. Fantastic. Let's look at another commandment here. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Well, that's a simple one. All work and no downtime leads to burnout and possibly crime. We should all take 1 full day off work each week. 2 is better, in my opinion, and spend the day contemplating our true nature, enjoying family, friends, tribe, joining together in worship if that's your thing, putting aside the mundane and the tedious, the annoying daily grind, and directing our thoughts to the higher realms, refreshing the spirit, allowing it to inhabit the human. I think that's what that means. So I'm going to vote to keep that one in because that is simple common sense advice. We're keeping that one. All right, moving on down the line of the 10 Commandments. Honor thy father and thy mother. Well, that's a hard one if your parents are twits. But hey, perhaps they're twits because their parents were twits. So this commandment, it asks us to have compassion for and to honor and care for those who in their own way cared for us when we were too young to care for ourselves. But more than that, and this is forgotten, it also asks us to honor our ancestral line. Praying for our ancestors, it's not some ancient woo-woo ritual. It has a positive impact on the DNA RNA. It clears dysfunction through the generational line, forgiving all for the benefit of all. And that frees the present from past karma. And that, my darlings, is a very good thing. So, yes, and after all, if you believe in soul contracts, etc., you chose your parents. So, aha, that's a simple common sense advice. I vote to keep that one on the list. Well, God, the church are going to be delighted with me by the end of this because we're keeping most of these. All right, let's move on. Thou shalt not kill. Well, wouldn't that be nice? And it would be lovely if one day we all got up one morning and just said to the establishment, very sorry, but we have decided that killing is wrong on so many levels that we're disbanding all the armed forces of this planet and turning our swords into plowshares and blah, blah, blah. Because you see, if killing is wrong, and it is, you can't give some people medals for doing it when they're in uniform, while incarcerating others for doing it when they're not in uniform. Because that, my darlings, is called selective morality. And it's a big problem on our realm. And we need to have some important conversations about that sooner than later. I'll leave it there for now, but we should definitely aspire to this do not kill ideal. How do you know if you kill someone? If you're honoring a soul contract, you're not honoring a soul contract? I mean, and people say to me, but Ani, if someone breaks into my home and they have a gun, yes, I understand, you will shoot them, but we're thinking about the ideal here. Thou shalt not kill on so many levels. Why should one not kill? Because if you're in a position where you have to kill each other, you have not recognized that you are all one spirit and one soul. And the brotherhood and sisterhood of man has not been understood. So just because we say in some circumstances we can kill and some we don't, it's all cow poo-poo. Look at the bigger picture. If we all believed we were one, there would be no sense of separation from each other, no sense of separation from source, and we wouldn't have to go through these commandments. So you know what? That's common sense advice. Don't kill people. I like that. I'm keeping that. And let's move on down the line. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Ooh. If you have committed yourself to a monogamous relationship, then for heaven's sake, keep your commitment. Because if we let lust take over and bypass our minds, and we think only with our sexual parts, it can only result in broken hearts. If our committed relationships need work, let's work on them before trotting off to bonk someone else's spouse. No. You just can't go around having all these ridiculous relationships left, right, and center if you've committed to a monogamous one. If you have a whole different ideal about what a relationship is, that's your business. But if you said, I will take thee and only thee, and people watched you and you shook hands and hand fasted and blah, 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 for heaven's sake, don't break that type of promise. Work on the fundamental reasons why you think you need to bonk somebody else. And if you have to break up, you break up, and then you're free to bonk. So that's a simple common sense advice. I vote to keep that one on the list. Are there any more commandments? Yeah, well, there's 10, aren't there? All right. Whew, this is a long letter. All right. What's next? Oh, yeah. Thou shalt not steal. Well, I think this one applies to the banking cabal and the IRS and every organization supporting the establishment. Now, I believe we should not take what is not ours, because that's personal integrity. I mean, how would we like it if someone stole from us? But as with thou shalt not kill, It is selective morality to put Joe Public in jail for stealing when the establishment steals from Joe Public on a daily basis. And that's another important conversation to be had sooner than later. I would say no stealing from anyone for any reason at any time is the ideal. And once we've achieved that, we've really approached the bigger picture on this, isn't it? And do you know what that is? I will tell you. It's because we've overcome the illusion of lack. And that places us back in divine alignment. You don't steal if you don't have a sense of lack and all its secondary emotions that come with that. So I vote to keep this one on the list. Lovely. Let's have another one. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Well, this one's simple. Don't lie. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first practice to deceive. Our world is filled with people bearing false witness. And that, my darlings, is how the propaganda train is populated. Lies, deceit, false agendas. It's about personal integrity. There's a phrase I like to contemplate, to meditate on. And that phrase is, to thine own self be true. Because it forces us to examine who we think we are, what we think we are, to ponder our origins and find our purpose in life. If we know who we are, if we have a robust sense of self, cultivated through cosmic alignment, we will never feel small enough to have to bear false witness. So, yes, let's keep that one on the list. All right, here's another one. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's possessions. I've shortened it because the original one is, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's ox or mule or maiden or handservant. And my neighbors don't have any of those things. So thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's possessions. What is to covet? It is to want something so desperately that you cannot think through right-mindedness. And that is a borderline mental health issue. When we crave something in such a way that it consumes us, we have stepped completely out of alignment with the divine light, and we've started to walk the path of the deranged mind. So let's not do that. And since this is good common sense advice, let's keep this commandment on the list. Oh my gosh, I think we did it all. I think that's all 10 commandments taken care of. So let's look at the beginning of your question. Do we need to replace them with something else? I don't think so. I think we may need to edit a word here and there, but what we need most of all is to explain them properly and apply them intelligently to daily living in today's world. And I know that they're thought of as a Judeo-Christian principle, but the commandments are basic spiritual tenets, and their substance appears in the religious texts of multiple cultures. So thanks, Mehmet, for bringing this to our attention, because one of the best and most valuable comments received thus far on this show, in my humble opinion, especially today when so many are floundering. And when we flounder, we go back to the spiritual tenets. When times are bad, the churches are filled up. When times are good, they empty. Well, woo, there were some long questions there and a really strong religious theme. So I think even though questions are pouring in, and I'm delighted with that, I think we'll say that's it for Quack, questions, answers, and comments this week, or we won't have time for any of the other segments. You know, my darlings, there's one segment we haven't included for a few weeks now, and that's a little pat of poetry. And I received a few letters from Martini heads asking why. Because it seems a few of you are worried that I might be losing my sense of humor. I assure you that is not the case. The day I lose my sense of humor is the day I retire, for everyone's benefit, and for so many reasons, I don't think that day will ever come. So, segue sound effect. Oh, I'm supposed to do the sound effect. Do-do-do-do-do-do. And now it's time for a little pat of poetry. Yes, folks, after a hard day's shamaning, I like nothing better than coming home, putting up my feet, getting a nice cup of tea or a small drinky poo, and writing really bad, non-peer-reviewed poetry. Today's little poem is called If I Was an Alien Living on a Star-Class Cruiser Battleship. Thank you very much. If I was an alien living on a star-class cruiser battleship, I'd look so cool walking around with a Star Trek phaser on my hip. It would be set to stun, of course, because killing's not polite. And when you pull the trigger, well, it's your moral obligation to get it right. I would travel the cosmic realms and beam down on the transporter. Of course, I'd be the captain, so I'd be the one giving all the orders. The natives would gaze in awe at my extraterrestrial presence, and I would bask in their glow as I graciously radiated my off-world effervescence. Be not afraid, my brethren, I would say in my cosmic contralto voice, so deep, so rich. We come in peace to advance your race, not to plunder, to cleave, or to bewitch. And the natives would sigh with relief, and smiles would widen their humanoid faces, and all would be hugs and high fives and hurrahs and intergalactic embraces. If we were all aliens living on a star-class cruiser battleship, we'd all look so cool walking around with Star Trek phasers on our hips. But we're not. We're on Earth, and we're here for the duration. So I guess we'll put our guns away and do what we can, here and now, to serve the people of this blessed nation. Well, there you have it, folks. Another really bad poem by yours truly. If I was an alien living on a star-class cruiser battleship. Look, you're not going to get this kind of poetry on anybody else's podcast. I just want you to know that. All right, time for a little sippy poo. I'm getting a bit dry here. I should have put more ice in this drink. Okay, my darlings. Well, we still have a little bit of time to go, and that's good because we have more segments to do. So let's do tarot a go. A little what the heck with your favorite tarot deck. And I think I mentioned this last week. I've switched from the Rider-Waite to the Robin Wood deck because it's very pretty and I like pretty things. So as we continue to examine the aces, today's featured card is the Ace of Cups. And I have it here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Yes. Aces are seeds, new beginnings, the root of a thing. They are raw power, the early stages of a thing. So I'm holding this card and I'm looking at it. And truly my heart just begins to open. I feel the joy coursing through my body. This cup is figuratively and literally overflowing with clear, refreshing liquid, a sort of divine seltzer water. And I look at it, I hold it, it pulsates, I feel a sense of renewal. And floating in the middle of the cup is a big, beautiful red heart. And a mermaid is swimming in the cup, along with some other fishy things. So there's lots of symbolism here. In the background, behind the cup, is pale yellow, morphing into pinks and purples. The ground is green with foliage and beautiful large pink flowers. The cup overflows and it feeds the greenery. This whole scene says refreshment, renewal, a sort of spiritual nourishment, if you will. I feel joy bordering on ecstasy. Even though I'm British, I'm allowing the ecstasy. This card says to me new relationships, healthy relationships, positive partnerships and friendships. Marriage is possible when you pick this card, and as is pregnancy. It also gives me the idea that we've reached a new level of understanding with ourselves and with others, a new level of cooperation, and a new breath of compassion in the older relationships. And as I look at it, I sort of have a vision of artists in flowing robes, people dancing, like no one is watching. This is an incredibly happy card. I just want to look at it for a little bit. And I want to jump in the cup, into the divine seltzer water. I want to say hello to the fishies. I want to say hello to the mermaid. I want to be refreshed in my spirit. Now, if we were to pick this card reverse, well, what happens when you tip a cup over? It empties. So when I turn this around, and I hate to do it, but when I turn it around, suddenly I feel unloved and I feel unsupported. I feel rejected. And I have a feeling that some of my relationships are going to be problematic. And all the things that go with that. I might experience some depression, some sadness, some sorrow. Maybe I'm going to be glorifying my false ego by playing the victim a little bit, getting rooted in selfishness and some self-deception. So reversed, it says loss, disappointment, dissatisfaction. It could well be that someone is toying with our emotions and playing us for fools, manipulating us. Because if we're easily triggered, then our mental health is not where it needs to be, and we are easily manipulated. Hopefully, we're not the ones doing the manipulation, because if we are, we need to take a good look at that. I'm going to turn the cup around so that it's upright. I much prefer it in that position. Ah, here we are. The joy is back. The Ace of Cups. Summer in a cup. Now, please, people, remember to always treat your cards with respect. They are nothing more than focusing tools for our minds. But if we want to receive clearly, our tools need to be cleaned and treated with respect and well maintained. The Ace of Cups. Well, that was a bit of fun from Tarot A Go-Go. Thanks for all the letters you send in, by the way, the people who really enjoy the tarot segments. And whoever, you didn't put a card in, somebody, well, I've got the address, it's a P.O. Box address. Somebody from Cincinnati sent me a beautiful set of tarot cards, Robin Hoodish type tarot cards. You know who you are. And you put your P.O. Box number, but you didn't put a card or your name or address or anything there that's tangible. So I want to thank you somehow, at least just say thank you. So whoever you are, if you're listening, gosh, I really appreciate that. It was a generous gesture, and the cards are beautiful, and I will use them. All right, well, I think now we have enough time for the Wizard's Gizzard, a spiritual ritual that you can make habitual. And today's whiz-giz is called, Why Do I Believe the Things I Believe? I'm sure we've done this before in one variation or another, because it's a core concept all we humans have to address. Because one way or the other, my darlings, we have all been programmed. Our souls may be billions of years old, but with each new incarnation, we create a new identity, a new personality. And as human babies and as human children, we are not able to care for ourselves. We have no option but to rely on our parents or guardians to guide us. And they do so through the filter of their programming. And many a line is blurred between guidance, which is a spiritually aligned practice, and indoctrination, which is the process of teaching a person to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. We tend to accept as truth anything that is unfamiliar to us. If you're told day in, day out over many years that the bogeyman is real, at some point your brain takes the processing shortcut and you accept it as truth. The words bogeyman, of course, can be replaced by a million other words. And by the time we're young adults, we think we know something, but all we really know is what we've been taught by others. And if regular meditation and prayerful contemplation was not a significant part of our upbringing, chances are we are not the ones in control of our minds. So this exercise is simple. There is no time frame for its completion because, sorry to tell you, it's a lifelong project. And it's simple. Look, whenever you're triggered by an opposing point of view, make a mental note of it. And when it's convenient, breathe deeply to remove the trigger that the incoming emotion caused, and that will enable you to think objectively. And once your aura is calm from the deep breathing, ask yourself why you were triggered by this particular point of view. What emotions did it stir up within you? Was it because you dislike conflict in general? Many do. Or was it something else? Were you offended by it? And if so, what exactly? Was it because someone challenged a long-held core belief that you absolutely know to be the truth? Or could it be you were triggered because you were never permitted to challenge that long-held core belief, which was drummed into you by your guardian? Unraveling what we think is a lifelong process, mainly because we are not raised to genuinely think for ourselves. Our minds are precious. Let's reclaim them and put them to good use. And let's be gentle and patient with ourselves as we journey into our inner core. If we don't like ourselves, if we don't respect ourselves, if we don't treat ourselves well, how on earth can we be expected to treat others well? And that's it for the Whiz Giz today. I'm going to have a few parting words for you. On the other side of all this great awakening, there's still going to be a lot of work to be done. But a few parting words. Our world is changing, and we can create brilliance and ascend into the golden age as sole sovereign free thinkers, or we can descend into a horrible darkness, cold and brutal, as enslaved automatons. The future is in our hands. Let us choose wisely where we focus our attention. Our ability to express ourselves is intricately linked to our ability to defend ourselves. And at our current level of awareness, it is naive beyond words to support the censorship currently in place and to entertain any notion of the planned elimination of the Second Amendment. Any institution that seeks to disarm its people while actively encouraging violence in the streets of its cities will do so for one reason only, because they plan to do something the people will want to shoot them for. So please, stop seeing the world through the filter of your partisan affiliations. Start researching deep state ideology and its detrimental effects on our individual and collective spiritual evolution. And stop believing the lies churned out by the Daily Spin. Because unless we use our own minds, this is one war we will never win. God bless America. God bless all the nations. God bless our Mother Earth. Time to do some thinking about the future. My darlings, I think that's it for today. I have finished my lovely beverage, and that means the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it, because I had a blast. I always do. It is my pleasure to connect with you every other Wednesday through the magic of internet radio. Today's real-life cocktail was a zesty homemade ginger ale with a goodly squeeze of fresh lime. But don't panic, martini heads. You can add bourbon or vodka to this if you want. I call this particular homemade cocktail POTUS 45. He is not a drinker. And this cocktail reminds me of him because when you drink it, every cell in your body goes, oh my God, something's going to change. And the ginger soothes the stomach. And when the stomach is happy, the bowels are happy. And happy bowels mean the swamp is going to be drained. Yes, I'm Ani Avedissian. This was Metaphysical Martini, a production of Cosmic Reality Radio, to whom we are most grateful. Until we meet again, let the spirit inhabit the human.
You have been listening to the Metaphysical Martini Show with Ani Avedissian, the Suburban Shaman, a production of Cosmic Reality Radio.